Hello, everyone. I am Bob Gold, and we're going to rock it at the end of the day. Are you ready to bring the energy up? All right. All right. So if you want, come on down. It's an intimate setting. We want to make this valuable for you. I promise to take your questions. We have a power panel for you to be part of today. So let me just introduce everyone kind of quickly, although their bios are in your guide. Ann Shaub is with Verizon. Ann has an amazing 25-year history. She's had more jobs at one company. She was there when AT&T had to break up, when they consolidated back again, and has really an interesting perspective on where her company is going and its unique consumer and enterprise experience. We're delighted to have you here, Ann. She flew in just for this panel from New Jersey. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Tom Sauer is, well, he's just Mr. Smarts, came out of New Mexico, University of New Mexico, and quickly found that his love and his life was really in telco as well. Today, developing new business development and guiding the vision for where AT&T is going. Both AT&T and Verizon, I think we can all agree, have a different vision of how they want to provide a customer experience, and we're going to talk about that. Susan Simmons is just scary smart when it comes to being one of the top analysts in the space as SVP and Managing Director for CSMG TMNG Global. One day you'll let us know what all those initials stand for, and has some interesting facts of what she observes as one of the top analysts of what's going on here. And last, to my far left, is the inimitable Mr. Mark Mangiola. Once a cable guy, maybe you're always a cable guy. He went on to be one of the founding executives. Do you remember a little company called At Home and later Excite at Home? Mark was there. He cashed out before it went bust, and today we all want to be Mark. Today, he operates as a venture partner for Canaan Partners, and he shepherds 5 different portfolios of investments across little tiny companies like Google and YouTube and other places, and is very, very involved with what the Dark Lords at Google are all about, especially in television delivery. So with that being said, let's get into it. First question. Let's talk about the consumer residential experience. What the heck are you trying to do at Verizon, and what are you doing at AT&T about it? How is it different?
Well, I don't know how it's different, but we can sure talk about what we're doing.
Go ahead.
All right. So, you know, for us at AT&T, it's about putting the customer first. And specifically when we talk about video, the video experience, when we talk about the TV experience, it's about finding and creating the value up front for the customer, driving and continuing to drive that value through the experience on the TV first and foremost, and then extending that value outwards. So if you think about the dollars that we generate off of the TV experience today, about $170 in ARPU, in a triple play, so that's voice, video, and the DSL. And you think about then, how do you continue to keep those customers engaged, continue to have them spend that with you every month? You have to add new functionality, you have to add new capability, but it starts with that core TV experience first and foremost. And I'm sure we'll get into some of the other aspects of what we're doing as we kind of talk through this with things like the applications and moving into video over mobile, online experiences and so forth, and bringing that as a cohesive experience to the consumer. But it all starts with that TV experience.
Yeah, I think that's pretty true for Verizon also. One of the big things we're really focused on right now is this notion of the borderless lifestyle. It's this desire of people to be able to interact with their home, interact with their services wherever they are. If they're at home, if they're away from home, it really doesn't matter. If they want to use their smartphone, if they want to use a web GUI, if they have our TV product and they want to use that, it all has to kind of mix together and be logical and not make people learn 3 different ways to interface with their services depending on which device they pick up. So, you know, that borderless lifestyle, and also just looking at this as things we can do to enhance their lifestyle. So, you know, one of the programs beyond the core services that Tom mentioned is we move into the connected home and we start looking at home control services as a way to layer on that additional functionality. This is just the way people live. We're not asking people to learn something new, so that simplicity that goes with it, that says this is just life made easier. You've got to set the thermostat now. You don't have to get up and walk across the house to do it. You know, who hasn't had a kid who's locked themselves out of the house? Now you don't have to remember where you put the HIDA key this month. You've got a door code that you can give your kids and you can watch them. So it's about making life easier wherever you happen to be. So I think those are the big things from a consumer perspective that we're trying to do so that they'll stay with us and be good customers.
Fabulous. You know, just to point out, our inimitable editor, Stuart Schley, is putting up some questions on the screens. We'd love for you to go ahead and text your answers back. And he promises to be irrelevant, irreverent, and fun as part of what comes up, but let's get engaged. Mark, we're talking about Verizon and AT&T and what they're doing, and of course, for a borderless lifestyle, it's kind of second screen. What do you think? What's going on?
Well, I think what Ann just said makes a lot of sense because, you know, I look at how folks use media, as does everyone else on this panel, and no one really pays attention anymore. They just want it when they want it. So if you have an open platform, an open pipe, I'm going to invest in companies that are going to reside on that pipe, whether it's coming across on a CDN provided by Google, Comcast, Verizon, or AT&T to the home, and the applications that Ann just referred to are the companies I'm going to fund. Now, I wouldn't want to be a carrier at this point in time either because it's hard. Because I'm going to have products that are going to compete with you as a carrier. And at the same point in time, it behooves you to create those applications as a sticky for your existing customer base. But as we both know, and when we formed At Home, golly, 15 years ago, we knew the open pipe was going to create over-the-top video, new applications that would engage a customer, and new business models. So as most of you have seen the announcement at YouTube of around $300 million being laid out for content delivery. That changes the whole television dynamic over time. And then you look at things like the project in Kansas City, where Google's going to overbuild Time Warner and AT&T. The landscape is getting really, really competitive. It's hard right now, but what I would say is, in an open environment, you have an opportunity. If you don't take that opportunity, you're going to end up being a dumb pipe.
So, Susan, tell us, what do you think are the three biggest challenges today facing national multi-video providers? You know, we just saw the audience here saying it was internet video. What do you see as the challenges?
Well, I'm not certain that internet video is a challenge. I think it's really an opportunity, and both the Verizon, AT&T, as well as the cable operators are really leveraging this TV everywhere concept. I think we're seeing for the first, for the last 2 years, maybe the last 6 quarters, that there really is more robust competition in video and in the triple play. So I think the biggest challenge is as great as that $170 ARPU is, getting that to grow and getting that to be maintained and not dealing with sticker shock and bill shock is going to be the biggest challenge that these guys face. So whether it's home security services, energy management services, or content storefronts and lockers, that suddenly, you realize, when I get my daughter's iTunes bill and suddenly she spent $30 on apps or credits, it's, I'm wondering, where the controls are and why, whether this is the appropriate business model. So when Verizon and AT&T start selling more apps, more content, when they're UV-enabled media stores, those bills are going to go from $170 to $270, and suddenly you're going to have more customer care calls. You're going to have your cost to actually deliver the service, because you're not just providing voice and broadband and video service, you're providing content services from a technical standpoint, from a bill standpoint. Your care costs increase, your partnerships elaborate. So I think really just managing it against the simplicity of whether it's an iTunes or YouTube is probably the more you do, the more sticky you get, the more you do, the more challenges and problems that you're going to have. So I think managing that all in an efficient manner, and I think, you know, we can debate whether you guys have moved too slow, but I think it's probably moved at the appropriate pace. And ultimately, as much as some of these over-the-top players have been good for the industry, ultimately they provide features that are part of a larger offer. And ultimately, as we've seen over time, the service providers are going to integrate it. So it's not to discount what Google's doing, but ultimately, I'm going to have loyalty to the Verizon, the AT&T. I'm going to buy a content locker or personal media library from one of these guys because I have a pre-existing relationship. I trust they're going to be around versus the startup storage locker or the startup media locker who, you know, I may be UV content that may go, you know, that may disappear without it. So I think it's really managing all of it, managing customer bill shock, and, you know, there's probably a few other things that you guys would say are your biggest challenges.
Yeah, and I would just add into it, you know, it's my boss did a telco TV keynote a couple weeks ago down in New Orleans, and he had a statistic that said by 2013, the average person's going to have 7 connected devices. Now, he did a personal challenge and said, how many do I have in my home?
Well, let's ask people in the audience. Just go ahead, run some numbers and get people to think about all of the connected devices from smartphones, Xbox, PS3s. Go ahead. What's the list?
So, right, so you've got the broadband connected TVs, the game consoles, iPads, iPod touches, you've got smartphones, computers, PCs, Macs, right? You have all those things. If you're in a smart home like I have, you've got cameras and door locks and thermostats, all these kinds of things. So, you know, by show of hands, how many people think they have less than 10 connected, are already ahead of the 2013 benchmark and have more than 10 connected devices in their home? All right, for those that have more than 10, how many do you think have more than 20? Oh, we got one. We got one
loner.
Right, one. I'll tell you, I counted in my house, so I have to tell you, as I was telling Bob, I have issues with excess, right? So I have 4 kids, I have 3 dogs, and I have a lot of connected devices. I have over 50 connected devices in my house.
8 set-top boxes.
8 set-top boxes, you know, 3 broadband connected TVs, you know, an Xbox, a PS3, and a Wii, because, you know, we can't pick one game console that everything plays on, and, you know. So anyway, as you have more of these devices and you're able to connect to more things, right, to Susan's point, all of a sudden, how do you manage that sticker shock? How do you manage all these different things that you can get access to in a way that, you know, lets people understand with all this great connectivity comes, I don't know, if it could be a risk if you're not aware of what's being purchased where, but having those controls and helping people understand what the impacts might be of the various buy decisions you're going to make.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting as you think about all of those connected devices in the house, when something goes wrong, who do they call? Who does the consumer call? They call the service provider, and this goes back to the whole care piece and the increasing costs around that. So it really does, as a service provider, it really behooves us to quickly innovate, move things forward, bring new capabilities into the consumer experience, into the consumer home, so that we can manage those more effectively, and then we gain the revenue off of them. Obviously we take the cost hit as well, but we're going to take the cost hit anyway. So it's not going to really matter. People don't call Google when, you know, YouTube doesn't stream right?
Well,
it's the DSL connection or
actually,
the cable connection.
When you take that into consideration as an ex-cable TV guy, and I ran big call centers for both At Home and for Time Warner, you're right, and they don't want to be in that business.
Exactly.
They don't want to be anywhere near it. So when you look at whether it's a YouTube video or their business model, it never anticipates the call center piece of this. The cost per connect minute, if they saw it, they'd die.
Yeah.
It's not in their DNA. But at the same point in time, they will ride your pipe as best they can to deliver content, products, and services in the most efficient way, and collect the revenue where they can.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal.
And we're fighting with that today with cannibalization from over the top. When you ask, though, about, you know, the challenges as a video provider, Challenge number 1, content costs. Challenge number 2, content costs. Challenge number 3, content costs.
Anthony Zeiger would be happy
Right.
to hear you say that.
I mean, it's at the end of the day. I mean, that's what's killing us all. And these content costs continue to go up. Now, what's that? Sports. Yeah, exactly. So those are huge challenges. Over and beyond, those are the economic challenges that we have to deal with on a daily basis. Then we get into these other challenges,
Well,
around devices and the experience.
Well, let's talk about pricing, because we have Sam Klosterman from SNL Kagan is in the red, I think over there, far end, if I can see right. Yes. And last year, SNL Kagan came out and said that the average video customer paid, are you ready? $72 a month. So, what's the right number that you think a monthly subscription ought to be? Because I'm not paying $72.
Well, I think from a Verizon perspective, the magic is figuring out what will people be willing to pay, what do they see the value in, but isn't pushing them up over the top. So, you start with your basic subscription service, right? And you add on set-top box rental, right? That goes into it too. Now we're doing some things, right, to potentially offset set-top box rental by leveraging IP-connected devices, right? We've announced that we're doing something with Xbox, right? You'll be able to stream some amount of video down to your Xbox and use that in lieu of a set-top box. That's really smart, right? Because customers are already invested in that. They've bought them, and this gives them a chance to leverage that asset without renting yet another one. But once you get in there, then what's that other capability that you can give customers, whether there's, great titles for video on demand or other interactive apps that you can bring in that people will attach to and rent and buy, right? So we're doing our FlexView product. You can rent movies or you can buy electronic versions of them. And that's the way that you start to grow that revenue per subscriber. But it's a balance between what people are willing to spend in terms of what they find the value, and getting revenue from every place that you can that makes sense with that customer.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this goes back to the bundles and how you bundle and creating bundles smartly, if you will. If you look across our user base, we have the U1, U family, U200, U300, U450 packages, and we skew very high. We skew up into the 300 and the 450 because of the value that's provided within those packages. So.
Or the lack of value in the low-end package.
Or the lack of value in the low-end package, exactly.
There's nothing in U100.
Exactly. And so you've got consumers that aren't going to take U100, and then they look at U200 and they say, well, geez, I can get all the premium channels if I bump up to 300. Or, you run promotions and things. So it moves up. And then I think again, going back to the experience, it's all about the consumer experience. If you provide a great consumer experience, and we all have our troubles with providing that great consumer experience, and you continue to add value and innovate, those consumers will stick with you. And as you do have to move up and increase pricing, they stick with you along the way. I mean, we all do as consumers of these types of services.
Susan, what are you seeing as the right number? And Mark, what do you think is the right number?
Well, I think it really comes back to the segments and the consumers. The SNL number, no problem. We use lots of SNL data, is an average. But to your point is, you guys sometimes skew higher because you're getting early adopters, takers who are dissatisfied with cable. They're moving over because they want faster speeds, better service, a better UI. So they're going to take that. But there's a mix of customer segments, and a lot of the people who, satellite still exists, and satellite, is a lot of $29.99 offers over the last few years for video. I'm from a large family, so I've got a demographic of, 7 other brothers and sisters, and, 2 parents who, have a mix of every cable operator and every telco video offer and satellite offer. So I always try to get insights from them. And my brother is not as fortunate as I am to have the great job, and he loves his satellite offer and has had satellite for 5 years because it's cost effective, and it gives him enough of his stuff. My parents have the UVerse 200, And, and they're happy with that, and they like the interface. And, my sister has Time Warner, and I, because I'm unfortunately not in a FiOS area, have Comcast. So it's, I think the offer comes back to households, needs, packages. I would take the lowest offer from Comcast, but it has no children's content. So they smartly have bundled the ability to get children's content in a higher package, so you're forced to take that. I think that some of the premium channels who've gotten into original content have gotten too expensive, and I think they've gone from $5 to $10 to $20 now a month for HBO, and frankly, for $20 a month, I can go over the top with better content cheaper. So they've gone too far. $5, $10 a month for a premium channel or $20 for a full package, I think is probably captures a lot of the mass. I think from the video, it all comes back to households. There's those who want the $30 a month, very basic package, to those who want 100 with lots of premium content, lots of premium channels, and are fine paying for it, and want multiple set tops and multiple things. I think the biggest challenge I have is the need for set-top box in some of the providers' platforms in every area of the house. And I think you guys are launching, the Wi-Fi. Launched the Wi-Fi thing, which makes it easier. I moved recently, and I have one cable connection. And I got to get in an electrician to come in and rewire the place. And, that's just work. That's just work. And so what? I gave my set-top box back and said, I'll deal with one cable connection. And guess what? I've got my internet-connected TV and Blu-ray, and I go over the top on the other one. So, they're losing. So I think it all depends on customers and segments, and that's why ARPU is an average.
Mark, you want to jump in?
I'll jump in from an ex-operator and then from a consumer. As an ex-operator, and you remember when I dropped Prime Ticket in Los Angeles and kept them off for a year.
We were the sports network that raised rates because we did a baseball deal. Mark was on the opposite side at Time Warner and decided to give away baseball seats and tickets.
Actually, we gave away Lakers season tickets to our customers who complained. That said, sports is killing the business right now. If you look at COGS from when I was in the business, COGS for us was approximately 19% against GP. Today, my guess is you're in the 60%, maybe as much as 70%.
Depending on the provider.
Depending upon the provider, that's right. So COGS is a big piece of this, and it creates a real problem as a carrier, and frankly, I feel the pain. So the carriers have to be able to say to the ESPNs and the RSNs of the world, no more. And some of them are starting to do it, but it really has to take hold. It has to be a tiered product. Now, from a consumer standpoint, the house down in Carmel, I've got everything in there. My house in San Francisco, I have nothing. I should take it back. In Carmel, I don't have a landline. But I do have AT&T, DSL, because I live in the hills and I couldn't get a bigger connection. And I have DirecTV. And I'm comfortable with the pricing. AT&T's DSL pricing, I think, is really, really good and fair. So as a consumer, I like what I get. In the city, I've got a fairly big pipe coming into the house, and like you, connected TVs. This, and over the top. Done. And I would point out one other thing. I've got 2 kids in college. They don't watch TV, ever. And if you go to their apartments, they're watching on this or on their laptop. That's how they watch.
Well, Ann, you're doing something very interesting at FiOS, especially running the CPE. And by the way, if you think about any video provider is charging high-end for set-top box rentals that you can't buy and DVR service on top of that, making $50, $60. I mean, it's a nice piece of revenue that you can't replace. But FiOS just came out with an Xbox delivery platform, and I thought maybe you can talk about what's Verizon's thinking behind giving up the revenue of the set-top box.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge, right? Because, with great revenue and with, once you pay off the investment, right, there's a nice margin. It's good business. Costs a whole lot to buy them, right? The reality is one of the biggest complaints that customers have is, seriously, do I need to rent another set-top box? I just want one down, you know, by the treadmill so that I've got something to do. I've got to rent a box. I only use it, maybe, if you're lucky, 20 minutes a day if you actually get around to it. But, you know, that's the model that we have. Now, you know, unlike AT&T, that's got a great IP network through their whole house, we have a hybrid network, which makes it a little bit challenging for us to totally move to the IP-connected devices. And so it's going to be a series of steps for us to get there. But, yeah, it does take away from the set-top box rental, but that's going to ease up a little bit on our capital program if I'm needing to buy boxes. And customers want that. So I think we have to look at that, and the challenge will be, how are you going to make up that rental fee, that $6, $7, $8 a month you would have gotten for that box? How are you going to, you know, how are you going to make up that revenue? And that's a great challenge for us, is what are the services, what are the capabilities that people will attach to that will offset that? But the reality is, you know, we don't see all set-tops going away, by the way, right? I mean, because, you know, in a lot of cases, the Xbox is on the main family TV, which is where they put the DVR anyway, and that may or may not be replaceable as a device. But, you know, certainly for secondary and tertiary TVs in the house, these connected devices make a really smart alternative to renting set-top boxes. So that's what we're going to have to work our way through over the next couple of years, when I think we reach that critical mass in terms of the functionality you get on the IP-connected device, so it looks like an inline box that you already get out of all the other boxes in your house, and the actual content that's coming down to those devices.
Pam, can I ask you a question? And this is more of a competitive question, because I've always hated set-top boxes, always. But it's also a drug on your P&L. If you had a competitor come into your markets and offered services that were all IP delivered without a set-top box, how fast would you react to that when the churn started to kick up, when folks realized they didn't have to have a set-top box?
Yeah, I mean, I think that to some degree is happening already as customers are slowly attaching to, whether it's Google TV or Apple TV or any of the over-the-top, that they can get to, you know, a Roku box.
They can't get it all yet, yeah.
They can do
No.
TiVo with cable car.
True.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, I think that we see that coming. We recognize that it's coming. So, you know, so we're going to provide that alternative to our customers as well. I mean, I think that we've known that it's coming. Moving, you know, kind of, again, that evolution, moving to an IP delivery of content is going to be part and parcel to how quickly we can fully integrate it in to our overall solution.
UVerse is IP delivered, so talk about it.
Yeah, well, two things. Back on the set-top box piece, yeah, on the P&L side, yeah, that $6, $7, whatever a month is great. But I tell you what, I would give up all of those set-top boxes, all of that capital outlay, all of that refurbing, all of those lost boxes off the trucks. Where'd they go?
Yeah.
You forgot the cockroaches that live in them, and you have to fumigate the
Yeah,
boxes
there you
when
go.
they come back into the box.
I mean, it's, you know, I would give that up in a second for replacement of non, you know, of non-owned and non-subsidized boxes, because that's really what that $6 is doing. It's just trying to recover the cost of that over the lifetime value of the customer. You just hope to hell that you can recover it, either for the current customer or for the refurbed customer. So when you think about it, and this is a great thing with UVerse, is because we are all IP, and being media room based, we were the first to roll out true linear media room experience on the Xbox. We did that a year ago. Uptake's been slow, I'll be honest. Why has it been slow? Maybe because of the upfront charge that we charge, but it's also that consumers, I don't think, have moved from that game console concept to that linear TV viewing concept. They have with the on-demand. There's no question about that in the storefronts. But I'm not sure that they've made the push forward. One of the things, you know, we've just launched in October is the wireless set-top box. So now, I'm sure many of you have seen the commercials. You can, basically it's a Wi-Fi based set-top box, or Wi-Fi receiver as we call it. You can take that anywhere you want in the home, and so long as you have signal, and boom, you've got it. So that's the first step in getting rid of that receiver box to the TV. Next step is going to be, how do you integrate those clients into the smart TVs? But the problem we have, though, in the smart TV world is the chips in these smart TVs aren't powerful enough to do the functions that we do in the set-top boxes. There is no disk, there is no storage. So now we say, well, let's move that DVR capability into the network, but now we're back to the content guys who won't let us do network DVR. So we're not going to replicate, you know, Time Warner, as we all know, has been through this and dredging for all of us in the industry. But so I think that, yes, we'll move to that. There's no question it's moving very quick. I think that we've got to work on standards around that so it's plug and play within the home. There's a lot of issues because all of us have proprietary systems. There's been a big push by the FCC with the AllVid initiative to basically create a DMARC, and then from that DMARC video is, you know, quote, unmanaged in the house to every device using standards. Well, if it's not getting to your TV and you call me and it's demarked, what do? I can't help you. But so then I have a bad consumer experience. So yes, receivers, set-top boxes, whatever you want to call them, they're here to stay for.
But don't you think that customers have, in some respects, self-selected out of the set-top box by using iPads and other devices? I mean, I think that's the point with your kids. So my kids are a little younger. They still like the lean-back experience. But you know what they'd really like to do? They'd like to go on demand and buy and own it. And I would like to buy because in some cases, I don't just want to rent. I want to watch Ramona and Beezus and take it with us on the plane and have it, and it's not an easy experience. So I give up that set-top box rental and spend more on content purchases and a content or media library that's tied to it. But I mean, I've in effect self-selected out of hiring an electrician because I just said, there's enough content that's watched there, and the experience with integrating things like YouTube, which they do watch, and that sort of content is not, you know, there's still, as much as there's 150,000 titles on Comcast on-demand service, it's still not as much as on YouTube, and it's still not some of the interesting content that my kids watch.
So let's shift gears. We've been talking a little bit about the cable experience, but really, we're in the heart of Silicon Valley. Let's talk about the social media experience, and how important is social media to our entire find it, share it, view it experience for the video platform.
We need that kids panel from tomorrow night up here to help us with that.
Actually, I just came from a company in the city before I came here, and they're trying, if anybody's familiar with Google Hangouts, which is relatively new, it's, in my opinion, stayed. And it's a bunch of video below a screen where you can talk to your friends. Okay, that's all right. But we're seeing in the city, we're seeing a bunch of new companies pop up around towns and really trying to make not only the ability to talk amongst ourselves while we're watching television, but also to share on the fly and more or less to rate and curate. And curation's a big deal. To Susan's point, it's hard to find stuff right now. Whether you've got 1,000 products from Comcast On Demand, or you go to YouTube and use our search engine, which is horrific. It's really bad. You can't find content on YouTube unless someone curates it and pushes it to you.
Right. And as a parent, I worry about them searching for content.
Of course you do.
Right. So it's...
So there's big challenges, but I also think it's really important and really sticky to get this right. And the real question is will Facebook come into this? We know Google's already trying. There's a bunch of startups here up on Sand Hill Road and on Townsend in the city that are trying to play in this space. The real question is, how do you monetize this?
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
As an investor, and the company I was with today was looking for $1 million in seed, which for us is lunch money. So, okay, we're going to give this one a chance. But when we really look at true investments, we're trying to figure out how does this company become a $200 million, $500 million, or $1 billion company. And for us in the venture business, 200 million's a single, 500's a double, $1 billion's a home run. We don't hit a lot of home runs. We hit a heck of a lot of singles. So I look at the carriers and go, if somebody white labeled this product, would you guys use it? I'll be talking to Ann, I'll be talking to you saying, I got this cool company.
Are we talking about Flip TV?
What would you do with it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a feature. It's not. It's
it
not
is a feature. It's absolutely a feature.
It's a feature, and we've we're doing something kind of interesting in this space, and that is we've created a second screen experience. So we've created a set of APIs that we announced at CES last year that allow application developers to create apps that interact with your TV viewing experience. We launched in, I think it was earlier in November, I believe, we launched 4 social media apps out there that pair the experience with your U-verse watching. You can post to your Facebook. There's some polling. There's a polling app. You can do some other interactions within Facebook and so forth. And you know, for us as a carrier, this is and where we're primarily interested in the TV experience. This is, I think, the first step in that. But overall, where does that go? I'm not sure we know where that goes, because there is so much noise in this space today. I mean, I got companies calling me every day that want to develop another social media app. And I go, no, I don't need another social media app. I need a sports app, and I need an education app. So a lot of noise out there, I think, right now. I don't know where it goes.
And it's interesting, because we have, in the Fios TV realm, we have our widgets, right, that right across the top, and a lot of the social media, it's sort of personal, right? I mean, I don't think I want to be doing my Facebook up on the TV, but it is there for those that want to do it. There's also Twitter up there, and I said, what, First, it's overwhelming to me to watch Twitter and everything going on. But my colleague who runs the program says, well, you really have got to, because we sort of split the screen. So if you're watching, the Grammys, or you're watching a football, you can pull up and see what people are saying about it, and just kind of have that rolling on the side, which is I haven't done it personally, because it's distracting to me. But my kids would love it, right? Because they are not distracted by anything. So we've mostly been using social media internally to tap in, to get our word out, right? So we use Facebook to let people know what's going on. We have key people within the business that have that tweet and get information out and response. We use it sort of as a forums. We get the pulse of what people are thinking. We go to community-based forums to get quick feedback on ideas we're thinking about, particularly around products or ideas or relevancy, kind of as like our own little focus groups of people. So we've kind of started in that domain, and I think there's all kinds of interesting ways to weave that into the viewing experience. But I think we have to your point, really be smart about how it looks on the screen, so that it's something that is usable if there's more than one person sitting in front of the TV at a time.
Yeah, the UX piece of this is critical, and we play a lot with, obviously, the Google TV products. And to your point, if I'm watching the Stanford game and I want to split the screen to pull up stats, to look at specific players who I know, that user experience has to be fast, compelling, easy to use, and easy to go back and get in and out of. Then to also put in a social piece to share with other friends and not take you away from that unique user experience. Right. That's all hard stuff to do. It really is.
And that's one of the reasons why we went away from doing that on the TV and creating the second screen experience on the tablet or the phone, so that now you move that away, so your TV experience stays the whole experience, and now you have the personal experience that is.
I don't know who's going to win
sequence.
That. I mean, I look at that, and I'm old school, so I usually have my laptop open while I'm watching.
And you're not watching on your laptop. What's on the home screen?
No, I'm usually looking at the stats.
Right.
So I'm looking at, but to Tom's point, we're not the audience, and I'm not sure how that new audience, when I look at my kids, they use media very differently. So the 20s and 30s folks are using media differently. So I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a hybrid, personal opinion. I think you're going to have both. And the question is, can you make that UX really easy to use on your tablet, on your TV? And it's seamless. It all looks the same.
Second and third screens. Let's talk about it. What kind of percentage are AT&T and Verizon, and Susan, what are you seeing in general in the marketplace? What kind of percentage of customers, video customers, are actually doing second screen usage in the home?
I think it's too new to have statistics out there, but I think you can look at the analyst reports out there that tell you that the majority of people, and in certain demographics higher and other demographics lower, seniors lower, obviously, do have a tablet, a phone, or a laptop open while they're viewing. I mean, it's skewed very high up through to the, I think, to the senior demographic, probably the 60-plus demographic. It's too, in our case with our new UVerse-enabled apps, it's too new for us to have any statistics back yet as to how that interaction. But I'm guessing that it will be viral, starting with the younger and moving up.
Well, I was talking to one of my clients a couple months ago on this in terms of how the iPad app was doing, and they said, you know what, it was like the #1 downloaded app this period of time, but between the video app and the comms app, there's more ongoing usage of those who use the comms app than the video app. The video app got a lot of downloads, less ongoing utilization of that. And so I think it's partly because, you know, on one of the earlier panels talked about, you know, marketing, the marketing promotions goes out there, but there's a need, and there's a need to continue to go out there and get people to use it and to get people engaged with it and understand what's on it. So, you know, and iPads actually are skewing older. Every new month that comes out, the demographics of ownership on iPads is older. So, you know, my iPad, my daughter watches iTunes and watches YouTube. She doesn't go to Comcast Xfinity. I don't even think she knows what it is. Right. She knows she can change the channel with Comcast Xfinity. Not that there's a viewing experience and that there's more content on there. She doesn't go to content discovery. She goes to on demand. So I think there's an educational and a training and a marketing that needs to go along with it. So you can't just put the technology out there. There's more that needs to be done to really make adoption into penetration and ongoing maintenance.
And by the way, there's a conference in San Francisco going on as we're speaking called App Nation. And it's all about app development across every broadband platform. So when you see the various apps that are now being put to use out there, it's hard to get noticed. Carriers have a better opportunity to get noticed because they talk to that customer on a regular basis. But for everybody else, it's hard to get noticed. Real opportunity as a carrier is you've got that one-on-one relationship with your customer every month.
Well, before we leave second screen and mobile, so Google, God bless them, is actually spending advertising dollars in a new campaign called Google Go Mobile. I don't know if you've seen the campaign, but they are promoting using your smartphone to view video. So is that going to be one of the drivers to take us to that second and third screen experience that we need?
Well, you know, I think for a Wi-Fi based device, it's going to be a really intuitive thing. I think that, you know, for like my children who downloading, you know, they wouldn't know that they're downloading over the 3G or 4G connection versus over a Wi-Fi connection, right? And it wouldn't occur to them because they don't pay the bill, right? So, you know, there's in our iPad, it only has Wi-Fi so that they can't get tripped up in that particular thing. But, you know, I think that people are going to have to understand how to use their smartphones and their Android phones to download videos in a way that's not punitive to them. I know I tried to, I had bought a video asset on our FlexView, and I was tortured watching my son. I think the score was 2-1 in basketball, nothing like watching 10-year-olds play, right? And I thought, well, he'll never notice if I just watch this video. And I get this pop-up message that says, essentially, it's really expensive to download it over your wireless connection. Why don't you wait till you get home and download it over Wi-Fi? Killjoy. Now I know, and now I can't do it. But at least, you know, at least at Verizon, it's popping up a message saying it's going to cost you to download that, and you're going to use up your data minutes. So I think there's an education on how you use these different smart devices to get to content that's up in a cloud someplace. And I think that will be challenging on how people use these new broadband networks on their phones to get to content.
I would tell you all that type of video is short form streaming to your device. And I could tell you what comes out of YouTube and what comes out of Google is obviously optimized. It's transcoded specifically for the various devices. And it's optimized in such a way where it's not going to eat up a heck of a lot of bandwidth. It has to be, because you won't get any usage play out of it if it does. At the same point in time, when we promote a product on the YouTube channel, if we promote it on the homepage, we promoted a short ESPN clip and a short high school clip about 2 months ago. We had an hour's worth of promotion, and within an hour, we had 1 million folks stream and watch the clip. So it's pretty powerful stuff, and even though some of us may go, hey, why did you do that? It cost a lot of money. This is here to stay, and we're going to have to fix the network infrastructure to handle it, because consumers, as I said when we first started, I want it when I want it when I want it. And I want it on all of my devices. And once again, I said I also didn't want to be a carrier, because that's the demands your consumer is going to make on you.
You know, switching gears for a little bit, AT&T and Verizon are a little bit of mashup companies. I mean, a lot of your geography is traditional telephone and DSL service areas with limited triple play video service like with Uverse and Fios. So when you go out there and you're trying to sell a triple or quad play bundle, you have different offerings and different partners. And what is that like inside your company to try to create a uniform expectation in the customer when you don't have a uniform offering across the nation footprint?
Yeah, you know, for us, the Fios is, you know, we ended up with a lot of permutations of how you could get Fios. So we're really trying to streamline our offers to make it, you know, easier to get to. Within our high-speed internet portfolio, we bring in DirecTV as our partner, and we create the triple play with DirecTV. And you know, you kind of work within what their offers are to kind of create something. It is not a one-for-one, right? But they have a DVR. It might be a little bit different than the DVR on Fios. They may have different channels, some different packages. But I think largely it's sufficiently different that people get it and the reps understand how to sell and position it. And then as we, you know, integrate in with Verizon Wireless, bringing in for the quad play, the single bill, they understand the one bill. And that's the challenge, is just making sure that our reps understand it, they can connect to it. You know, I know what we're busy right now, we're going into a lot of our call centers and we're installing our home control services. An interesting story, we had a team go into our call centers in Manhattan and wanted to make sure they understood what home control was. And we found that they were not pitching the thermostat package. And so someone asked, why don't you talk about the energy package? They didn't understand what a thermostat was. For many of the apartment complexes in Manhattan, there is no thermostat in the dwelling unit. It is controlled by the building unit itself. They didn't understand what a thermostat was. They didn't get it, they didn't understand it. So by bringing it in and kind of demystifying it and kind of exposing them, because they just don't take calls from people in Manhattan, right? These call centers are a multi-state call center. So that was a really interesting, kind of one of those epiphany moments when you went, oh, they don't know what a thermostat is. Thought everyone, I mean, I grew up in suburbia, everyone has a thermostat. So you have to bring the services in, you have to expose them to it, create rooms where they can learn and understand and relate to it, and I think then they're able to voice track and articulate the differences based on what's available to customers.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're in the same, kind of the same boat you're in. I mean, where we don't have Uverse, we offer DirecTV, we bundle that with DSL, et cetera, within footprint. Where we do have Uverse, and remember that Uverse passes 30 million homes this year, we're at about 3.5 million subs. So we've got a long way to grow. Demand is still incredibly high. So we've still got a long way to go on that, which is great because, you know, we can build that unified Uverse vision as we go to market. So still got a good runway there. Where it gets more difficult, and same thing on, I'm sure on the Verizon side, is you've got this wireless business and you've got this Uverse app here. And those Uverse apps and Uverse Online transcend across not just our footprint, but nationwide. And so now it is a lot of work on the marketing side in order to create unified messages to make sure consumers know what they're getting, and that if they're a Uverse subscriber, there's this thing called TV Everywhere, and they get a whole nother set of content available when they go onto their Uverse mobile app here. Wow, I'm a Uverse subscriber, I log in as Uverse, I get a whole new set of content out there. So a lot of consumer education, keeping the brand and the messaging consistent is absolutely critical. But it's tough. It is tough.
We're running towards the end of our hour, so I do want to take any questions from the audience if you have any, and I have some fast speed questions I want to throw to the panel. 3D TV, meaningful, not meaningful?
What was that?
3D TV.
I think adoption's been slow. You know, I mean, I think people invested in getting their nice high-def TVs, and so needing to go out and buy a 3D TV, I mean, you're going to have to get people when when they decide to buy or when they, you know, see a really good deal they want. You know, content's kind of slow to come, and still the glasses. I mean, I have a 3D TV in our house, right? But you know, it's a novelty. It's kind of, you know, kind of catchy. It's, you know, it's not anything that anyone's motivating toward.
It's not an improved experience over HD. Until it becomes improved over HD, it's not. It's not
Mark,
going to be.
is Google Fiber going to make 3D TV pop?
No, because it's the application. I think Google Fiber is fiber, and frankly, Verizon is doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's the consumer experience at the end of the day, and it's not compelling enough for the cost and the hassle.
We're in Silicon Valley. Who are you scared of? Who are you watching?
I'll let you take that.
What?
We're in Silicon Valley. Who are you watching? Who are you scared of? What keeps you up at night?
You can take it.
I was going to. I mean, I think in general, we're watching all the various ways over the top comes in.
That's
right?
exactly right.
And we're watching that because it's two parts, right? You know, if we're not careful and we're not smart about how we react, then you end up being disintermediated, and you're just, I mean, you know, to Mark's point, you're just the big pipe, right? So I think we have to engage with it and make sure that there's compelling value to staying with the service, or at least, you know, pairing up with over-the-top content so that you can get some of your content over the top and some of it right there through your terrestrial service.
Yeah, I think the other thing is with respect to the over-the-top, and I think this is real fundamental, the over-the-top players that are out there, even the other alternative video providers out there, have fundamentally different business models. And so what happens is they are protecting or trying to grow a different business model than MVPD is, or than even a carrier is. And I think that's key to understand, because they can come in and price and do things at different margins that create threats to others' businesses, an MVPD, a carrier's business. And I think that is the biggest threat. So it's not specifically any one company. It's really this very different business model.
Well, I'll ask another question. We have one out here. If we want to bring a microphone out, that would be great. Yep, right here in the center.
So I want to ask the Mark Cuban question, which is that the unicast scale across all these devices on the internet to meet the consumer opportunity probably won't work. And just wondering what the panel's view on that, particularly the carriers. How do we address consumer demand in a high-scale unicast environment to all these devices with quality that someone's willing to pay for?
I can take it since we're working on it now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I could tell you that in the YouTube shop today, we're working with a number of partners for some very, very big events where you'd be live streaming well over 1 million streams. But if you think about it, it sounds like a lot, but it's not. It really isn't. But right now to do 1 million streams live is a Herculean task, live in high definition. And so we're really in the beginning stages of this. Everyone around the YouTube shop said, we're going to do a million streams. And I said, yeah, the local broadcast station can basically do that all day long.
There's from a carrier perspective, I mean, this is a real problem if you say, hey, everyone's going to go watch the Super Bowl as a unicast stream, right? I mean, the network's going to die. So pricing, tiers, caps, I mean, those are all things that can help manage and control it. But I think as we move into this I'll call it this over-the-top distribution model, we really have to understand how multicast distribution starts to play a role in that across both the wireline and the wireless networks. Today, multicast is typically only in environments like a UVerse environment, whereas it's a managed environment. We can manage those joins and leaves from those video streams. But as we move forward, and that's something we're working very hard on right now to try to figure out how do you do that. It's an extremely complex problem. How do you take adaptive bit rate and apply it into a multicast world so that you can start to scale?
Two last questions for you. Netflix. We have to ask about Netflix. Okay, are they last year's AOL, or do they have a future, or do they have a future with you? Do you care?
Don't care.
Don't
Whatever next service comes along for $7.95 and has the content I want, I'll subscribe to.
Yeah.
Last question from my side is, we're in Silicon Valley. We're in this great creative center of the country. You could have dinner with anyone. Who would it be?
Yeah, so I thought about, I'm glad I had 5 hours on the plane this morning to think about this one. I landed on Meg Whitman because I think that she's just a really interesting, positive female role model. Unlike myself, who has over 25 years with one company, she's moved around, done a lot of different things. I think that's interesting to understand philosophically how you make moves, because even though I moved quite a bit within Verizon, I never kind of left the mothership. And then how, she's branched in and tried things that were really different and, perhaps a little provocative. So I think that would be just a really interesting conversation to have from that perspective.
I want to be there. Tom?
I guess I'd have to say probably John Malone. If you look at what he's done, his failures, his successes, and his just, tenacious behavior in creating and moving things. It'd be a fascinating discussion as to why, how, what motivates you, why sell Japan cable, and buy Chilean cable.
Why become the largest landholder in Maine?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, outside of ego, what is it that drives that, and how do you deal with the failures along the way?
Great. Susan?
So I didn't pick someone in Silicon Valley because I knew there was a lot of media guys here. So I said I wanted to have dinner with Chuck Lorre, creative guy. So no deference to the CSI guy, but I like light content, happy content, and Chuck's created a lot of great shows, and it'd be good to talk to him about what his next ventures are going to be.
Great, big bang. Okay.
Since I work here, I really don't want to have dinner with anybody in Silicon Valley. In all honesty, if I got to choose somebody, being a high school and college coach, which I am, I would go to heaven and sit with John Wooden and have dinner with John Wooden. That's who I'd have dinner with.
Yeah, great. Hey, I'm Bob Gold. I want to thank everyone for being here. Stuart Schley for running great editorial across our screens. And Fred Dawson and Screenplays have a fantastic cocktail reception waiting for you. Thank you so much.